Hi, I'm Jack DeSousa. I'm with the Power of the Patient Project. Today we are joined with Tuit Nutrition, Amy Berger. Amy is an Air Force veteran, certified nutritionist specialist, and author, and has a master's degree from the University of Bridgeport. Her field of interest is the connection between low carbs and ketogenic diets and nutritional therapies to fight diseases like diabetes, obesity, and Alzheimer's. Thank you for joining us, Amy.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Tell us a little about yourself. What inspired you to become a nutritionist?
Well, I got into this the way a lot of other people do. And when I say this, I mean specifically low carb and ketogenic kind of diets. I used to be heavier, and I was heavier despite doing what I thought were all the right things, a healthy, low fat diet, lots of whole grains, lots of exercise, and the weight just wouldn't budge no matter what I did. And I actually discovered the Atkins diet. This was way, way before. I mean, I've been at this long enough. Facebook didn't even exist. Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, they didn't even exist when I found the low carb way of eating, but it worked. And I didn't have to starve myself. I didn't have to count anything. And after being in and out of a lot of other jobs that I didn't really find fulfilling, it occurred to me like, oh, wait a minute, nutritionist is a career. Maybe I could go back to school and do that, and I could help other people learn about this great low carb diet. So that's exactly what I did. And I tell people now that after all these years of eating this way myself and of continuing to learn and research how and why this works, weight loss now to me is one of the least impressive things that this can do for your body. It is so effective for so many other purposes that it's really my co-author on the book, End Your Carb Confusion, Dr. Eric Westman from Duke University, he says it's so unbelievable you won't believe it. And I think that's true.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. You describe Intuit Nutrition as a source of sanity in the sea of nutritional madness. How does the Tuit Nutrition take the crazy out of keto?
Yeah. My motto on YouTube is Keto Without the Crazy, and my website says a source of sanity in the sea of nutritional madness. I just kind of, like I said, when I was new to the low carb and ketogenic way of eating, it was very simple. Most people did the Atkins diet, or there was another book called Protein Power. There were just a handful of books. You followed the plan, you followed the food list, and that was it. And now, because this is so popular, it's a blessing and a curse. It's really, really nice to see how popular this is and how many people are getting into it. But the more that's out there, the more misinformation there is, the more myths, the more overcomplication. And I just find that people have watched a few too many videos, and they've listened to too many podcasts, and they're totally overwhelmed and confused. They have no idea what to do anymore because, equally credentialed people are telling them very different things. So I just really try to help people, simplify, get rid of all the extraneous, expensive, unnecessary stuff, and focus on what really works. And then there's some very basic principles that work for everybody. And then beyond that, we have to customize a little bit for each individual person. But I wish for people that it were as simple to do as when I was new to it.
Okay. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are going into keto?
Well, there's a lot, I guess. It's not a magical weight loss diet. Some people really struggle to lose weight. It's not just like, oh, if I ditch carbs, I'll lose weight. That's not exactly as simple as that. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that this is a very, very high fat diet, right? Keto, it's high fat. What it is first and foremost is very, very low carb. The first thing to do is cut your carbs very low, and then your fat intake would depend on what your goals are. Maybe you actually need to gain healthy weight, or maybe you're doing keto for some reason totally unrelated to weight loss. You might be able to eat more fat, or you might need to eat more fat than someone who's looking to lose 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest, is that the ketogenic diet was originally developed as actually a dietary therapy for epilepsy before anti-epilepsy drugs existed. But the epilepsy keto diet is very, very specific. It has to be very, carefully controlled. Doing it for weight loss or doing it for diabetes or PCOS or something else is very different. And I see a lot of people trying to follow that super strict kind of medical keto diet and trying to do all the math and weigh and measure their food when they don't have to. It's really much simpler than that.
Oh, okay. It's amazing. One of your books is called Stall Slayers, 7 Roadblocks to Keto Fat Loss and What to Do About Them. Have you noticed like that most people struggle with one roadblock than the rest?
There's the two biggest that I see are what we just said, too much fat.
Yeah.
Just because you're on a keto diet doesn't mean you can eat all the fat you want and lose weight. I mean, I wish, but no, we see this. There's this trend a while back of people putting butter and MCT oil in their coffee, or just loading everything up with cheese because they think they have to hit some kind of fat macro, like they have to have a certain percentage of fat in their diet for it to work. That's a big one. And the second biggest one is just eating too many carbs. What makes a diet, so a ketogenic diet or even just a low carb diet kind of switches your body from being fueled mostly from carbs, from glucose, carbohydrate, to being fueled mostly on fat. And what makes that switch happen is the absence of the carbs, not the presence of lots and lots of fat. So they kind of go hand in hand. If you really want, now, depending on what you're trying to accomplish with keto, you have to do both of those. You have to keep the carbs very low, but not go so crazy with the fat. And the other big thing that I see, it's mostly because people come to me for help, right? If they're doing keto and it's working great, they don't need me. They don't need to pay a professional. I see a great deal of undiagnosed or improperly treated hypothyroidism. And if your thyroid hormones are not where they need to be, you will have a really hard time losing weight, even on a ketogenic diet. So, and I mean, I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose, but I can help, I can give people information to educate them, and then they can go, kind of talk to their doctor about all that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why do you think keto is the best low carb diet?
Well, I don't think it's best. I think depending on the situation, I think some degree of cutting back on carbohydrate is really effective. So for example, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and anything related to this, like I had said, PCOS, non-alcoholic fatty liver, even people who have migraines, skin tags, the list goes on and on. That this, like, I know I've mentioned weight loss a lot, but keto is good for so many of these other things. And so I think depending on your current sort of health situation and your goal, keto can be really, really good. It's not the only way to be healthy, certainly. I'm not a zealot or anything. It's not the only way, but even the American Diabetes Association, the most mainstream of mainstream organizations there is, they issued a consensus report in 2019 that said very low carb diets showed the most evidence for improving blood sugar, the most.
Wow.
So, if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, it's just a slam dunk to cut your carbs. Yeah.
So what would you say is the best low carbohydrate snack to eat?
Depends on what you like. It really, if I tell you to eat pepperoni, but you hate pepperoni or you keep kosher, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on what you like. I think some of the easiest ones are going to be things like zero sugar beef jerky, maybe even canned salmon, or some people can do nuts. For some people, they're kind of a binge food, but nuts are good. I think I said cheese, hard-boiled eggs. And people forget that a snack is really just a small meal. So there's nothing wrong with having like a cold piece of steak or like a chicken breast, cut up into strips and dip it in ranch dressing. It's a lot simpler than people think it is. You could run into a gas station and get pork rinds. I mean, it's really whatever you like.
What would you say your favorite snack is?
Oh, mine?
It's going off, yeah.
Probably a hard-boiled egg, and I'll have it with mustard sometimes, or a hot sauce or something like that. That's probably, I always have a whole bunch of hard-boiled eggs in the fridge ready to grab.
Yeah, that's awesome. What would you tell people that would say they would never try a low carb diet like keto?
Um, I guess it depends on their situation. If somebody's dealing with one of these issues for which we know this way of eating is really powerful, I would just say, give it a try. 30 days. You will know in 30 days whether or not this is making any difference. And then you can make a choice like, okay, do I want to keep doing this, or do I want to go back to my bagels and donuts, And I also think, like I said at the beginning, I think a lot of people don't want to try keto because they think it is really complicated and you have to buy all these expensive things and you have to measure, prick your finger all the time. You don't. So I think there's a lot of people that don't understand it's really just eating some kind of protein and vegetables, and it's real food. You don't have to buy any special packaged processed stuff. But I also I'm not in the habit of trying to convince somebody. You can never convince somebody to do something they don't genuinely want to do. Mm-hmm. So if somebody expresses interest, then I can, bring them along, but they have to be ready, right? They have to want to do it in the first place.
Have you got any of your friends or family hooked on keto?
Have I? Not really, and some of them could really use it. I don't push it because, they know what I do. They know where to find me if they need help. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I'm not able to make a lot of inroads there, and to keep the peace, I don't preach it. I'm not the food police. I'm just going to have to be content with helping strangers instead. Yeah.
As a nutrition expert, what is your number one nutritional tip that you would give our viewers or your viewers?
Ooh. I hate to say again, it depends. I'll talk to women, let's say, to women.
Yeah.
Eat more protein. Most women skimp like crazy on protein because we've heard through the years that our protein portion should be about the size of the palm of our hand or a deck of cards. And this is nonsense. This is based in zero scientific evidence whatsoever. And I really think if women would just eat a much larger portion, whether it's chicken or beef or fish or pork or whatever, eat a larger portion and you will be amazed at how much longer you go before you get hungry again. You will probably not need to snack as much. Your sugar cravings will decrease. Your hair and nails might look a little better. I can't tell you how many female clients I've had who complain of like weak, brittle nails. We double their protein intake and all of a sudden they've got really strong, long nails. So that would be my number one tip for women: more protein. Forget you ever heard the deck of cards thing ever.
Mm-hmm. How much protein would you recommend then?
This is super controversial. The number they normally cite is woefully inadequate. The number they, meaning, nutrition authorities, experts like government organizations, whatever, will tell you about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight. Good luck doing the math there. But that was never meant as the optimal or ideal amount. That was meant as the bare minimum to not waste away. And so I think taking from a lot of sources that I trust and I think are reputable, I like about 1 gram of protein per pound of your desired body weight. So let's say you weigh 225 pounds, but you want to weigh 125 pounds. Around 125 grams of protein a day, but there's a lot of confusion about this. I need to clear up one or two things. That's a ballpark. It's okay if you eat a little bit less some days, a little bit more some days. This is not an exact thing you have to get every day. The bigger issue that a lot of people don't realize is if I say 125 grams of protein or 80 grams of protein, whatever, that is not grams of a protein food on a food scale. That's not 125 grams of chicken or fish by weight. it's 120, 125 grams of protein. And so you can use an app if you want, like a tracker that will tell you how much, let's say, if I eat a 6-ounce piece of steak, how many grams of protein is that? That's, I think people don't realize that. And then they eat even less protein, which is,
Do you recommend people keeping track of their protein intake or carb intake on keto?
not unless they're stuck. Like if they're doing well, then whatever they're doing is working. If they hit a roadblock, like and with fat loss mostly, then I want to know, how much are you eating? You know, maybe you're misestimating, or maybe you're eyeballing it wrong. Like maybe you think you're eating this much and you're actually eating this much. So I think even then they don't always have to track. Sometimes I can just say, oh, whoa, you're eating way too much cheese, or you're eating way too much of this. And that's, I think it can be helped. Like I said, if somebody's really having trouble getting the results they want, then I think it's useful to track for a week or so. You don't have to do it forever, but do it for a few days just so you can see what's really happening.
Like you said, 30 days. And if they don't like it, would you recommend them doing another diet that's low carb, or?
So it depends. I hate that, but that is the answer, right? That's the real answer here. It depends on why they don't like it. You know, maybe they feel bored of the food, and maybe I can introduce like 20 or 30 things that they didn't realize they could eat. You know, that's, maybe they're just tired of the limited things they're having. And if they would eat a lot more variety, that's one thing. Or depending, you know, if somebody doesn't like to cook, depending on your budget, there are meal delivery services now that have low carb meals. So it kind of depends on the reasons why they don't like it. Sometimes what I help people do is, if they're not, like, a true ketogenic diet is very strict. It's really low in carbs. And if somebody's not ready for that, it's totally fine to ease in gradually. You know, cut, like, let's say the first week or two, no more bread or pasta. You still have fruit, you still have your potatoes, your rice, just no bread and pasta. And then third or fourth week, you take another 1 or 2 things out. You over time, you take things out so that eventually you land on a really low carb diet, but it was much more like doable for you. It was easier to stick to because it wasn't so radical a change overnight.
Okay. We are running out of time in this meeting. So is there anything you would like to plug, like upcoming books, your social media, or anything?
Yeah, I have 3 books. Like I mentioned, End Your Carb Confusion, that I wrote with Dr. Westman. That was my 3rd book, my most recent. My 2nd book was The Stall Slayer, which is about breaking fat loss stalls on low carb and keto diets. My 1st book was actually about Alzheimer's, which they now call type 3 diabetes, or diabetes of the brain. So if you want to know why a ketogenic diet may have some role to play in helping with cognitive decline, my 1st book is called The Alzheimer's Antidote. But the best place to go is, it's kind of a long website, adaptyourlifeacademy.com. adaptyourlifeacademy.com. Adapt Your Life is a company that I help make online courses about keto. We have one on cholesterol and cardiovascular disease. We have one on sugar addiction. And so, because it's online, you can do it from anywhere in the world. People should check those out.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you again, Amy.
I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Tuit Nutrition. It's TUIT Nutrition, and that's my handle on Twitter as well. That's like all my social media is Tuit Nutrition.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again, Amy, for taking the time to talk with us today. I'm Jack DeSousa from the Power of the Patient Project, the National Library of Patient Rights and Advocacy. Thank you again for watching, and have a good one.